Len Khodorkovsky was the chief marketing officer for the Department of State during the Trump era. He, of course, also served with Undersecretary of State Keith Krach. He is now in Israel and joins me to give us an update from there. Good morning, Len.
Good morning, Hugh. Thanks for having me again.
I'm glad to have you on. Give us an update. There are some headlines here. The Defense Minister Gallant says they're choking off Hamas in the tunnels. The October 7th victims have sued in the United States courts. But the Wall Street Journal says Gaza militants have regrouped and rearmed and are raising the threat of a long war. What say you?
Well, I think it's mostly Gallant is right. I think the Israeli army is performing much better than the news reports, and they're clearing out Gaza methodically. They are still not done. So there's work to do, but I think they're very deliberate in the way they're approaching it, and I see them accomplishing the military objective as they plan, even though it probably could have been a little bit more efficient if they had received the weapons that they needed from the Biden administration.
So, Len, I do believe they're going to win in Gaza. The war reporting, both in Israel and here, is not really detailed because I don't know that the IDF censors are letting a lot out. But when Gallant says they're choking off Hamas, this is not the Viet Cong getting things from the Ho Chi Minh Trail. It's not us sending weaponry to the Mujahideen against Russia or the Taliban getting weaponry from Pakistan. They are cut off, aren't they? Hamas?
They are finding extremely difficult to operate, and certainly to get back to the levels where they were able to carry out October 7th type attacks. So I think based on the Israeli objectives when they went into Gaza, which is to prevent another October 7th from taking place, and they're going to accomplish that. So there's no doubt about it. The only question is how quickly, and the only other question is how many hostages can they get out alive. Many of them are already dead, unfortunately. There's still about 120 that are in Gaza alive and dead. Unfortunately, I think at least half of them are probably not alive anymore. But the people of Israel want them back anyway. They want closure. So it's unclear whether that can happen quickly or not, but the Israeli military will accomplish its objective.
Rachel Goldberg Pollan will be joining me tomorrow to talk about her son, Hirsch, who is both an American citizen and an Israeli citizen. I look forward to that. Let's turn, because I do not want my audience to be surprised, Len, when war breaks out in the north. Yesterday, Hezbollah used a drone to seriously injure many Israeli soldiers. They've done close to 5,000 rockets, missiles, and RPGs over the so-called blue line. And they're still in violation of the 2006 UN resolution ending that second Lebanon war. What do you think is going to happen in the north? What should America be prepared for?
I don't think a full out war is inevitable. Now, there is high anxiety here in Israel in terms of whether there will or won't be a war. There are about 80 to 100,000 residents that have been displaced from their homes. So they're living with a day-to-day uncertainty. But I don't think Hezbollah wants a full-on conflict. Now they started it, so the Israeli government is going to have to respond, and they're responding very effectively. Unfortunately, their attention is now split between the south and Gaza and north and Lebanon. But I don't think that the full-on war is inevitable in the north. And what the United States can do is certainly deter Iran, and they can, make sure that Hezbollah and other proxies of Iran think twice before getting involved.
Now, Len, that makes you more of an optimist than Haviv Rehagur of the Times of Israel and Michael Oren, the ambassador, former ambassador from Israel to the United States, who join me regularly. They think they've got to repopulate the north and soon in time for schools to open in the fall. And it doesn't show any sign. Hezbollah shows no signs of stopping. Is there a conversation that's not making it over to me about whether or not Hezbollah will retreat from where they are right now and go back to the status quo ante and to the fragile peace?
Well, whether they want to retreat or not is first a question for the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, because ultimately that's who's making the shots, who's calling the shots. And we have to be clear about what's going on here. Hezbollah is acting on behalf of Iran. As a matter of fact, Hezbollah is the most prominent legion, foreign legion of the Islamic Republic. So the decision of whether Hezbollah stops or doesn't stop is up to Iran. And Ayatollah Khamenei has been, generally speaking, what I would call a pragmatic extremist. He's tried to be very measured and deliberate in how far to push the envelope. I don't think that he wants a full out war with Hezbollah and risk both the annihilation of Hamas and the decimation of Hezbollah as well. I really don't think so. Now, the other player here that has a say in this is the Israeli military, which is causing a lot of damage to Hezbollah right now. Now, yes, they've been firing, but they've also been suffering great losses. The Israeli military is extremely capable, as you know, and they're inflicting severe damage on Hezbollah. So it's not as if they're sitting around and firing things off when they feel like it. At some point, they're going to not be able to do that. Now, the Israeli military is also going in and clearing out the infrastructure of Hezbollah in that border region. So we're not done yet. They're putting pressure on Hezbollah. They're putting pressure on Iran, and I really don't think that it's in the Israeli interest, certainly, or the Hezbollah's interest or Iranian interest to go into full-on war. So I don't think it's inevitable.
Now, Len, I want to go back to your years as chief marketing officer for the Department of State, working with Keith Krach and, of course, Secretary Pompeo. Can you tell us a little bit about your reaction to the presidential debate and what you have heard Israelis say about the presidential debate? Because that sent a message completely different from the domestic political content. It must have panicked our allies to a certain extent to see our commander-in-chief dusty and dry and falling apart. What did you hear, and what would you do if you were the chief marketing officer right now?
Well, what I'm hearing is much of the same that probably the American people are discussing, which is how do you see the election? Do you think Biden will make it to election day? Do you think that they'll swap somebody else in? Who will it be? What will that scenario be like for Israel? I think the Israelis, generally speaking, were pleased with Biden's early statements after October 7th, and they're genuinely thankful for the support that America is giving them. But in the latest weeks, I would say probably starting in December or January, when the Biden administration started playing games with withholding certain support or withholding certain equipment, they started feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And at the moment, they don't have a choice but to work with who they have. But I do think ultimately they want more clarity and more. They want America to have their back, and I don't think, generally speaking, they feel like they can rely on the Biden administration any longer. Now, the politicians won't tell you that on the record, but in quiet conversations with professionals, both inside of government, outside of government, they're uneasy about where things are, and I think they just want to make it to election day and hope for the best.
Last question, Len Khodorkovsky. Does anyone in Israel that you've talked to link President Biden's infirmity and occasional incoherence, verging on incapacity, to the random and sometimes unpredictable American support for Israel, sometimes on, sometimes off, sometimes slow, sometimes no go? Are they connecting the dots there?
I haven't heard anything like that here. I think the only thing that people are assuming is some of this go, not go activity from the administration is rooted in American politics. So, he has to pander to the vote in Michigan. He has to pander to, various factions in his party. They're I don't think it has Well, at least I don't think that they are connecting his behavior to his physical or emotional or mental state.